Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Okay, Director Thomas,
I'm here.
Director Davidson,
Here.
Director Robertson,
Here.
Director Radaman.
Here. Next on our agenda is public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized items. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. I just wanted to make an additional comment regarding public comment. It's not called public questions for a reason. It shouldn't ever lead to discourse conversations. So please don't expect that in our meeting today. Everyone in the public is welcome to make public comment now and on each agenda item as we go through the meeting. Do we have any public comment?
Hello, Roxanne Freitas, the ratepayer.
Hello.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Pull your mic a little closer so we can hear you.
Yes, that's important. Okay. Okay. I want to make a clear and reasonable request in support of the email I sent to the board on January 5th. I'm asking the board to pause the next planned water rate increase until key information is provided publicly and reviewed. Over the past several months, important questions have been raised about the drivers behind rising rates, including system water loss, sewer system infiltration, and progress towards upcoming compliance deadlines. While there has been process, there has not yet been substantive public engagement with these issues. A rate increase is a significant decision for households and businesses. Proceeding before this information is clearly presented and discussed would be premature. A pause allows the board to ensure decisions are based on complete information and that ratepayers understand what problem a rate increase is meant to solve. I also have one more thing. I want to briefly reference the Brown Act because it's relevant to both transparency and public participation. The Brown Act was created to protect the public, including ratepayers, by ensuring that local government decisions are made openly with meaningful opportunity for public input. It was never intended to be used as a tool to discourage, limit, or narrowly constrain public participation, but rather to encourage openness, trust, and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? We're going to move on to the consent agenda. We got 3 items, 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D.
Move for acceptance. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 401. Any, oh, we don't need public comment on the consent. New business. Item 4 on our agenda is new business. Item 4A, resolution honoring Kelly Soulier-Doyle. Gosh, I hope I didn't destroy her name.
Soulier-Doyle.
Okay, for 20 years of service upon retirement from the district. Is Kelly joining us today?
Kelly is not joining us today, so I'm just going to kind of give you a quick little recap of her resolution, and we'll
And
send
20
her
years.
resolution.
Congratulations for her.
Yeah.
Has she retired yet, or is she still?
She retired December 30th.
Oh, wow.
So
Casey, go ahead.
Kelly worked for the district for 20 years, as you said. 15 of those years was as an accounting technician in the administrative department, additional 5 in the customer service department. Through their 2 decades of work, Kelly helped support the district's mission and operations of the administrative department, and we wish her well.
Awesome. Any other staff members like to make any comments regarding Kelly's service? With that, I'd like myself would like to thank any 20-year employee for their dedication to the district, and that is just awesome. And congratulations to her as she wanders off into retirement. I hope she has something fun to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, just
Move for
Okay.
acceptance of the resolution. Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any public comment on Kelly's retirement? Okay, we're going to move on to, do we have a resolution to read? Or was that, I guess that was our presentation, yeah. Okay. All right, we're going to go to 4B, discussion action regarding appointment to board committees and election of members to Joint Powers Authority. This is an item that our president of the board, Jack Yaramendi, has helped with. We provided him with our preferences, and he made his decisions. The items, the decisions are outlined in the board packet. Each of us has been assigned to committees very similar to last year with some minor changes. Any discussion at the board level on this item? If not, we're seeking a motion to entertain this item.
Actually, I do have a question, and I direct this to Michael Minkler. I had a conversation with one of your staff, and they were talking about how external relations only met like quarterly sometimes. Is that looking like that would be the same going forward, or should it be a monthly meeting?
Something I'll talk to the committee members about. We can decide how we want to move forward.
Okay.
Do we have to do the JPAs? We don't have to do the committee appointments, but do we have to do the JPAs individually, or can we just adopt the slate?
I think you adopt the slate.
Yeah, I make the motion that we adopt the chairman's recommendations on the slate of joint powers authorities and other regional agencies, organizations. Second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and in response to Director Robertson's question, yeah, you and I are members of that committee. We'll get together with staff and see how often we want to, how often we want to meet, number one, and then what we'd like to discuss regarding external relations.
All right. So here's my concern. If it really was going to be a part-time meeting, then I'm not really on a committee where I'm kind of fully invested, like finance, engineering meets monthly. And I'm not sure that's the best use of my time. If it is, that's fine with me. But that's.
Well, I don't think that, I mean, I think the board has got to have a little conversation about that as well, but I don't think it needs to be every month at all.
You know, I can tell you, we most likely won't be meeting once a month, but every other month, quarterly, or when something comes up. But you and I can discuss and decide that.
Okay. And then if it was to be an intermittent meeting, is it possible to change committee assignments later?
Yeah, so we would have to wait until President Garamendi is
of course.
back, but absolutely, he can change it at any time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The board policy says that we can change it. But I'm not interested in changing it, but we won't have to wait. For Jack
That's
to
true.
come back.
I didn't mean to take that authority away from the board if you would like to change it.
You have no meeting scheduled yet.
I got it. All right. Thank you. I'm on board.
Okay. And no public comment on this item. We're going to move on to the public.
We had a motion in a second.
Oh. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0-1. Still under new business, item 4C on our agenda is discussion action regarding the awarding of a construction contract for the Wallace CIP and Sawmill CIP. Kevin.
So we had an engineering committee meeting. Good afternoon. We had an engineering committee meeting yesterday where Chase did a very good presentation on this project. So I kind of want to, the engineering committee recommended we bring it to the board. So this item's for the award of the construction contract of the Wallace and Sawmill tanks projects. So we recently replaced a number of tanks up in the Ebbets Pass area with the glass line bolted steel tanks. These tanks will be similar to those, except these ones have a concrete floor in them. So we're replacing the 3 million gallon tank up above White Pines. It's called the Sawmill tank with 2 500,000 gallon tanks. So this will give us some operational flexibility to be able to run one or the other to take one out of service if there's repairs or something needs to be made on one of them, and also more aligned with the water use in the area, because right now we have a much oversized tank, and this will give us better circulation and better water age. Well, it's been some time since Moyle Construction worked on a CCWD project. They've continued to construct similar projects for other agencies. They're from Jamestown, so they're a fairly local contractor. We've competitively bid the project, and Moyle Construction submitted the lowest bid price for both tanks, and that was $5,639,544.38. The engineer's estimate was much lower than what Moyle bid on, but we had a very competitive bid, and we found some items that were not fully captured in the engineer's estimate. So we feel comfortable with the price that we received from Moyle.
Just out of curiosity, how many connections are there in the Wallace service area?
There's a little over 100.
Okay.
And so this project will be funded through the private placement loan number 1.
I just want to do the math here real quick. That's $56,000 per connection.
Yeah, it's going to take, even if all the rates went to this project for the next 20, 30 years, they'd probably be close to paying it off. So
I'm just trying to get some, economy of scale here on some of these projects and rates. $56,000 per resident of Wallace. We're going to be putting in a new tank.
Which is why we don't collect fees that way. It's like Sheep Ranch. Sheep Ranch has a lot fewer people than that, and it's probably when we do a project up there, it's probably a little bit higher also. But that's what we divide the cost among every entire district.
Yeah, unfortunately, this tank is in disrepair, and it has to be replaced. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But yes, it's very expensive to replace this infrastructure, even for a small community like Wallace. So we think by awarding both tank project under single contract, provides efficiencies, reduces the mobilization costs, and allows the coordination of construction and inspection. So kind of the construction sequence, where up in Arnold, you can't work in the wintertime, and down in Wallace, you can't work in the summertime because there's demand down in Wallace. So there's temporary tanks that we'll be setting up as part of that project. We want to try to do that work in the wintertime when demand's lower. So we felt like it would be a good combination to combine these two projects together. They're similar tank constructions, so similar tank manufacturer and a similar construction contractor would be able to do both projects.
What's the life cycle of a glass bottle line tank?
So these tanks, they don't have to be, we have tanks that were built in the late 80s in the Ebbets Pass area, Avery, Meadowmont tanks, and they're still in great condition. So the life cycle cost analysis on a glass line tank is very good because you don't have to do the recoating. The coating lasts for 50 plus years. So a normal welded steel tank, you have to drain it and recoat it every 25 years to maintain it. So we've had some tanks that went past that time, and we ended up having to replace the tank because there wasn't the maintenance done on it every 25 years. 20 years.
Is that the case here?
This tank, Sawmill tank's our oldest tank in the whole system. It's 1970s. So, and it's a 3 million gallon tank. That because of the water demand, we only keep about a third full. So it looks like a big hockey puck. So in reality, when you have two smaller tanks, you get better circulation. You get better ability to control water age.
But
And the
it can't-
tank, the
it can't
the
be-
roof on the tank at Sawmill is deteriorating, same with Wallace. So it's, and there's a lot of snow loads up there in Sawmill. The potential for a catastrophic failure is increasingly, as the roof needs to be replaced or removed.
Okay, roofs can be structurally strengthened, and could this tank have been, I mean, I'm thinking of Director Davidson's comment that $56,000 per household is,
Well, the Sawmill tank is a little bit different story. That serves all of Arnold. So almost the entire, except the lower half, like below the Hunter's Water Treatment Plant in Avery down to Forest Meadows. But everybody else above that and everybody in Dorrington served off this tank. So this is the main tank that feeds all of Arnold. So this is our largest service area of any tank in our whole system.
His math would have changed dramatically had included all the connections in the Highway 4 area.
okay. Understood. That makes more sense.
There's two projects, and they're going to be doing them at the same time. I mean,
Yeah, the same
similar?
construction contractor will be doing the same time. There might be some overlap in the two sites, but the idea is that it could be efficiently done by one contractor.
Good planning.
Anything
So
else? Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for motion.
Make a motion, we adopt a resolution moving the award of construction contracts for the Wallace and Sawmill water storage tank project at Oil Excavation Inc. Amount of 563954438 and authorize the general manager to execute construction contract related document. Is there another resolution for the next one?
No, there's the
No,
same
so-
project, so it's one construction contract for both of them.
I'll second that motion.
Here we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion, comments up here? Questions? Any public comment on this item? Right.
Good afternoon, Mike Rogers from Valley Springs. Just for clarification, how many service connections are there in that Arnold Sawmill area in addition to the 100 in Wallace?
Yeah, no, I think I did the math wrong. I just thought it was Wallace.
I think there's like a, yeah, when you divide it by the,
I stand corrected on that. I caught that, but I didn't.
I think there must be 3,000 plus connections.
All right, let's do that.
3,100.
Is that? About 6,000.
So it's only 1,800.
Okay, any public comment online? Becca? Okay, with that, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 401 again. Here, moving into item 5 in our agenda, reports. Operations report. Damon. Always enjoyable.
Good afternoon, directors. Happy to share with you some interesting operational items from December of 2025. We'll just dive right in. Okay, as we like to start every operations report with Jenny Lynn distribution system, it's no different here. So example of a service line replacement on Hotley. As you all know, we have a utility crew focused solely on replacing service lines. Right now, they're on Baldwin. So they're going to continue down Baldwin and Rancho Calaveras until those services are completely replaced. Oftentimes, the distribution crew, which is a separate crew completely, will expose a service line to make a repair and then find themselves in need of replacing it. And that's kind of, this is an example of that. So they blow down, they see what's going on, and then they just make the call that they're just going to replace the service. And in this case, you can see it's a dual service, we call it, to two different meter sets. The bottom picture on the image on the right. Okay, and then this is an interesting one. So this is at the La Cantena waste plant. So we have a potable water service that feeds water to the La Cantena waste plant for, as you can imagine, any number of things, but most notably, there's a bathroom there and there's a sink and there's a laboratory. And so but this is on CCWD property. The water line was installed years ago. This is a large area. So our guys had a general idea of where the water line is. However, they don't know completely. So they have to expose the line and then follow it. And so this is kind of what they're doing here. And they note that there's a buried valve in the image on the right. There's a coupling in the image on the left. There's a T. And then they continue to look for the leak, the source of the water. The first thing we had to rule out on this location is that it wasn't wastewater. It wasn't sewage, and it wasn't leaving the property. And that was very important, right? Because if it was, we would have had to report a spill, essentially. So the guys continue to look, and then the construction crew gets involved because we notice on a rainy day that then when the blowers at Lock Antenna kick on, you could see air coming out of the asphalt from the laboratory building. So like we might need to take a look at that airline. The airline is large, it's 12-inch. So as our team exposes the 12-inch ductile iron line in the image on the left under all the electrical conduit, start to assess how we're going to replace this because that aggressive soil has eroded that ductile iron pipe away. Lo and behold, the crew finds the source of the water line leak in the image on the right. You can see that coupling and you can see water spraying out of that coupling. And so they make a repair. So it's often like one work effort flows into another. So we have this exposed 12-inch ductile iron line that you guys can see is significantly corroded that needs to be replaced. So we start developing an operational plan. The construction crew and Pat and his team and Jesse and his team get together and talk about how you're going to work through this issue and replace this line. And then you make the water. So
the damage we saw on the larger plant is due to the water spraying on it, the combination.
Well,
It's
no,
only that section.
no, it's unfortunately it's the entire line, which, so if you can imagine that line just kind of extending straight, and then there's a basin on the left of it that holds sewage, and it's being aerated. So we're allowing this natural process to take place. There's microorganisms that are eating the solids in the sewage. We're going to decant that water, filter it, send it off down on its way. This line provides air to that whole process. So it's almost a football field long. And it drops in size. So it goes from 12 to 10 to 8, 6 to 4. And unfortunately, the engineering team has informed us that this area and the work that they have done related to the design of the new facility, the soil is aggressive. And so unfortunately, the line was not wrapped. And so this is from the soil. Yeah. Here's an interesting one. So the image on the left, this is an air relief valve. So you can imagine a water line needs to evacuate air periodically. So you're going to put in an air relief valve at a critical point. And as air flows through the water system, it could be an entrained air, it could be dissolved oxygen coming out of solution. It's going to burp essentially out of that air relief valve. And those are prime targets for vehicles. Cars love to run them over. There's like a magnetic attraction to air relief valves, and so they're often destroyed. And so what you see here is the line, the mechanism on top of the standpipe, if you will, was broken. So our crews unthread that standpipe. They have to shut the water line off, unthread the standpipe. You can see it in the middle of the vise in the truck. Then they install a new standpipe and put a new air relief valve on, and then backfill the standpipe line with usually like AB rock and drain rock, and so put it back in service. And so there's a float inside that green mechanism that as air comes in, the float drops, and the air can burp, and then when the water comes back in, it seals the valve, and that's an air relief valve.
How close are those? They stay that far out of the ground, and they're pretty close to the roadway?
They can be well off the roadway. They're in any number of places. Yeah, sometimes when we can, we'll install bollards, protective bollards in front of them, depending on where they're at. Usually they'll have a box, some sort of cover over them. They can be subject to freezing depending on what size they are. So that's also an issue we have to pay attention to depending where they're at. This was. You can get an example of kind of some of the conditions of our pressure reducing valves out in the field. This is in the Jenny Lynn service area, Garner and Frieden. Pressure reducing valve. So you have a large valve, and you usually have a bypass valve. And so the work here, it's a little convoluted, but in the image on the left, you can see they're taking apart the large valve to replace the components inside. There's a diaphragm, there's small operating equipment and components. And then the bypass valve, they just replaced completely. So in the image on the right, you see that nice clean blue apparatus kind of in the middle of the picture. That's the brand new bypass pure. And then some more images of the two kind of close up. Before replacement on the left, after replacement, that nice dark blue one on the right. We have buried valves all over the system. So as our folks find them, they like to expose them and work to ensure that they're not buried again. So you can see that we poured some concrete slabs around these valves and then built a retaining wall so that soil doesn't cover them up. And then you're going to go try to find a way to isolate a section of your water system, and you're going to spend 4 hours with a metal detector walking around looking for a valve that's buried under 6 inches of dirt. And so this eliminates that effort and makes things more efficient in the future. These are some interesting.
I just gotta say, your pipe work is beautiful. Retaining wall needs some help.
We need some love there. I would call that a utilitarian retaining wall, right?
Okay.
We'll get some landscaping block out there. Yeah. Yeah.
So some people use mortar between the blocks. But
Well,
Was it at least clay?
yeah, I think there's some bar in there.
Yeah.
Bar's going to keep it straight.
looks like it was backfilled with native.
I think we're going to coat it with, some leftover elastomeric coating you might have on Kevin. Coat it with some of that. Rhino line it. We could do that too. So there's this building that used to exist at Vallecito that we've moved all over the service areas. And here's another example of that. The construction crew moving this overhang building that we're going to use to cover rock and material in La Cantena. Some of you may have heard of this. There are some manholes in the Woodgate subdivision that there's a swale around the collar of the manhole. And CCWD is working to reestablish the grade on the manhole lid there. So we've saw cut around the manholes. This is a job that's in concert with the county. The county's going to go in there and reestablish the grade on the roadway as the district repairs.
Where's Woodgate?
This is Vista del Lago North. You hang on the left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Warmwood, Woodgate. Yeah.
Across the street.
Yep, across the street. Now we're jumping up into West Point. Another example of our folks' ability to listen for a leak and make a repair and expose the leak pretty much right on top of where it is occurring. And so obviously we want to minimize patches in the roadway. And so it's really, it's important that our folks listen and find an accurate, mark an accurate location to dig. And this is an example of that. Hats off to Doug and his team up there. It's a team of one. Barney Way on the left, another example of that. Image on the right, so Middle Fork Pump Station. We put boards in those concrete dam bollards to establish some backwater conditions so we can actually ensure that we have enough volume to pump in the summertime. And then when the winter comes, we need to get those out of there, because if you have a portion of a tree coming down, it can really wreak havoc on the system. And there's also a treated water line right under that area set in concrete. So you can imagine if you have bollards and backup, you can.
This is where the intake is for the CPUD water transfer?
That's correct. That's right. Yep. Yeah. So this is kind of, if you were standing there looking at this in real life, right to your left would be the pump station, where the water is conveyed in a pipe that sits at the base of those bollards and feeds one large wet well, which we have 3 pumps, I believe it is, 2 pumps in the Middle Fork pump station that then will take that water and convey it to the treatment plant.
In a heavy rains like we had recently, how far up those bollards will that stream rise?
Oh, right, all the way over. Yeah,
It can still be taken out. The tree came down.
potentially. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Here's a great project, kind of tipping the cap to the work that our construction distribution crews do relative to ensuring that we have as many fire hydrants operational as possible. This is replacing 2 very old fire hydrants on Bald Mountain Road in West Point. It's kind of hard to see in the image on the left, but there was a service line that it was actually tied into the 6-inch main right downstream of the fire hydrant T. And then the service line itself wrapped around the fire hydrant before it made its way over to the water main. And then the customer's private plumbing then came back towards the fire hydrant, which you can see in that pipe kind of at the top of the left-hand image. So making sense of all of that on the fly is kind of an art, and our guys do that every single day. So hats off to them. They need to know what pipe to disconnect and what pipe to leave live. And so this is an example of that. You can kind of see that service in the image on the left. Here's the concrete pour on the fire hydrant kicker on the right, the old hydrant being taken away, pulled out of the hole. And so an example of the backfill and compaction of the brand new fire hydrant installation there with the valve, G5 valve access in front of the hydrant. So you can isolate that hydrant if somebody decides to run over it and water shoot in the sky, rather than shut the whole universe off to turn the water off. You can shut that valve right there. And here's kind of a before and after. So this is kind of the old hydrant on the left that's questionable operation. And then the image on the right, the sanitary concrete apron, the G5, and then the brand. Hats off to the crew for this. This is a great, I love to share the lift station screen at the West Point lift station. So this lift station is on the pumps that push the liquid sewage through a force main, a couple miles cross country, over in a bridge, actually, over to our West Point wastewater treatment facility. And grease loves to collect on this screen. And so our folks, Doug will pull this screen every quarter and hot flush it, get all that debris off of there so the pumps can continue to operate without pushing up against a head that they can't accommodate. This is a really interesting one in West Point. So the image on the right is a sewer lateral. Somewhere along the way, this lateral was capped. And it was going, long story short, our folks found that it went to a septic tank that was in a community garden that was no longer in use. So somewhere a long time ago, somebody decided to cap it. And you can see I don't know what that is, whether that's some asphalt. It looks kind of like duct tape to me in the image on the right. So they have a pipe that's capped. And our guys are hydro flushing the sewer system, cleaning it. And in the image on the left, all of a sudden they see water blow up out of the asphalt. They're like, oh my gosh, we blew the sewer line up. Well, come to find out that top of that capped lateral on the right blew off. And so then the guys understand, oh, this thing was disconnected years ago, 25 years ago. Let's go ahead and find out where it goes, clean all the AV rock that's now in the sewer line out, which as a result reduced blockage conditions that the fire department had at the firehouse for the past couple of months, because now we understand, oh, this capped line was allowing AV rock to flow in the sewer line and block the fire department's sewage from flowing into the system. And so just kind of a case and example where preventative maintenance can, lead you to issues that you can then correct other issues. So hats off to the guys for finding this as another holiday gift that I don't know if they wanted it, but they found it and they made the most of it. So the image on the right, they cut that cap, they cleaned the debris out of it. You can see it's just full of debris. And then the image on the left is coming from the abandoned septic tank, which they flushed, cleaned, evacuated all that water that's in the hole now, and then they reconnected the whole system. So should that septic tank need to be used in the future in the community garden, it can be used. Now we move up to Ebbets Pass. This is a 2-for-1. So there's a 1-inch service line in Larkspur, and there was 2 leaks on it. You can kind of see, just orient yourself. You've got the hole in the image on the right, kind of on the fog line, and then our folks are opening up another hole with the Vector truck. And you can see the pickup tube there. It's kind of hard to see, but there are 2 separate leaks on that service line. You see all those roots in there wreak havoc on our system. They find a little bit of water, they're going to go ahead choke whatever it is they find and ultimately break it. Here's a better, you can see the water spraying out the top of that in the image on the left. And then just an example of the backfill in the image on the right. And then the reestablishing the asphalt. So if you cut out a section of asphalt, you can keep it intact, drop it right back in. Hats off to the guys on that one. Another 1-inch service line repair up on the pass. Just kind of an example of the variability with backfill material times that our guys find and their ability to kind of get into small restricted places and make the work happen. You can see in the image on the right, it's kind of just, this one was just off the road and that CCWD issued an underground service alert. You can see there's power right there. There's a red flag in the image on the right. So our guys all of a sudden find themselves having to contend with power. Curb stop replacement. So you guys get to see what an example of what a curb stop looks like, often connected to your at your meter to your service. This is an interesting one. So wharf hydrant, the image on the right, some people call that a hydrant, and this is a challenging aspect of, a lot of our communities is they have these 2.5-inch or 1.5 inch lines that have this fire hydrant connection on them. And in no way are they going to be able to truly address, fire protection, but they are there. They're available for water as necessary. And so you can see the valve and the age of the valve handle in the image on the left. And these are those the kind of improvements that we can make to ensure that, whether or not this is on a line of adequate size or not, but we can work to ensure that, we can optimize fire protection and at the same time optimize the system. Maybe this works better as a blow off.
What kind of pressure is on a line? If you've got an 1.5 inch line?
It's going to vary. It's really going to depend on where it is within the system. I mean, we can have 120 plus PSI, or you can have, 40. There's so much pressure variability throughout the system. And I'm not sure, you guys, Kelly or Pat, you guys might know what the pressure is on Horseshoe off the top of your head. I don't. But yeah.
It's 120 PSI on an 1.5 inch line to do a lot of damage.
You can cut through some stuff. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But 40, not so much.
Right. Here's an example of kind of correcting some issues in the past. So there was this is an example of a pressure reducing valve piping inner tie that in the past was broken. And so our crews really wanted to reestablish this connection. So you can kind of see in the center image and the image on the left, there's some basically a concrete kicker sitting on top of the line that used to be intertied to the line at the bottom of the image with the green pipe. And so for years, this has not been connected. So our construction crew worked with the distribution team up there to reconnect these pipes. And this is just the stages of construction. You can see there's a concrete kicker in the image in the middle that needs to be pulled out of there so that line can be reconnected to that T. And then the work continues. The image on the right, kind of reminds everyone how heavy a lot of this material is. You've got a crane, and you're going to just slowly lower that equipment, the piping down into the hole, and then connect it and make the connection as the image on the left, and then backfill and compact in the image on the right, and reestablish that piping intertie. This is an example of a call out in the middle of the night, so sometimes we talk about our on-call staff. They get a call, they might be cozy in bed, doom scrolling on their phone, and the next thing you know, they're out on Navajo at 1 o'clock in the morning, looking at a meter box, shooting water 40 feet in the air. It's just an adventure every single night, right? And so hats off to the guys that go out and do that work and makes the fix.
That's on the homeowner side of the line?
This would be our CCWD side. So part of the art is determining that, though, trying to understand. And obviously, in a situation like this, you're going to have to slow the water down to see what's really going on in the image on the left. But yeah, that's a lot of the conversations that happen between on-call and customers is trying to understand and get them to be able to give you a little bit more information so you can get an assessment of what's happening. Because when you deploy, it's a lot. And so you want to make sure that it's a district issue. In this case,
Put on the right, were you up at 1 o'clock in the morning?
that's not me. No, that is our illustrious collection worker, Tommy, who seems to be everywhere all at the same time. He does have a great haircut. I love his haircut. But you know, the image in the center, you can kind of see like what they're cleaning off, you know, so all of that debris shot out of that meter box, AB and sand all over the place. And it looks like it's right next to, you know, like a concrete landing or maybe a part of a driveway or a porch almost, if you will.
Is that unusual to have that kind of debris in one of our water lines before it gets to a homeowner?
Well, it wasn't in the line. It actually, when the leak happened, the pressure, like we were talking about, blew all the material around the line out and then just blew it out onto the asphalt or the concrete next door. Yeah. And so our guys, you know, they're not going to just drive off and let that, you know, pile of debris sit over here where, you know, they're going to clean up the mess, you know, and that's what they're doing there. Here's an example of replacing or cutting in a 6-inch valve in the image on the right. And then also replacing a leaking 2-inch tap. And we're diving into some here's some unique failures that happened. A tree fell on the roof of Big Tree's tank 4 and poked 4 holes in it as it fell. And so, you know, this was day after Christmas. Our crews are kind of assessing some of the damage. You know, you're not going to necessarily get a call from SCADA about a tank, with a tree on top of it, right?
How old's that tank?
3 years old.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's imperative that we get those holes covered up ASAP. So our crews are up there. You can see the center image. So our mechanic is tied off. He has basically a fall protection lanyard that's connected to the railing of the basically the ladder of the tank. But our distribution crew leader is holding it so it doesn't get caught up on anything while he's trying to move on the top of the tank. So you're kind of holding this lanyard up. You've got a coworker out on top of the tank who's riveting disinfected aluminum covers on over those holes. And you can see in the image on the right, those little square metal squares that are on top of the roof there. So hats off to the guys, you know, coming after Christmas. Might have drank too much eggnog the night before, and the next thing you know, you're on top of a
sloppy, wet conditions. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is a great example of making do with what you have. The raw line vault at Sheep Ranch is an interesting vault in and of itself. In that vault, there's a 2-inch valve and check that failed. And so our distribution crew and our construction crew went up there and worked together, and you can see them on the right. They installed a new 2-inch valve and check valve. So the brass there, the image on the right, and then the image on the left, you can see that the existing check had essentially split. And so this takes water off of Sheep Ranch pipeline conveyance from San Antonio Creek, and then it pumps it up the hill to the Sheep Ranch water treatment facility, where it's then treated for use in the community. So the image on the right is the raw water vault. And then our mechanics then turned around and worked with the operators to install a new backflow device at the Sheep Ranch water treatment plant. The old one was quite old and in need of replacement, which is that image on the right. And then you can see the brand new check in the image on the right here with new valves and everything installed. Sometimes you got to cut things. Sometimes you got to weld out in the field. Image on the left illustrates some of that. Here's an example of our construction crew working with our electrical team up on Fowler Peak to install our 2-way radio telemetry. So where the sheriff's department was kind enough to allow us to put a slab up there and add some of our 2-way radio equipment so we can continue to have conversations with each other when cell networks go down and whatnot on the 2-way radio system, which is really key for us. Some more work with the electrical team, repairing aerators at the Upper Pond La Cantena waste plant. You can see how big the aerators are before they go down into the pond. Annual flow meter calibrations. These happen every single year. Our electricians go out and calibrate all the flow meters that we have out in all of our systems. It takes quite a while to do great job. Here's an interesting one. You can see kind of the image on the left, how you're going to test your flow meter calibration. You're going to look at SCADA images of what was the flow 10 minutes ago before I calibrated this. What is the flow now? How far apart were we? What does the 4 to 20 milliamp signal tell us? And then the image on the right is an example of spending all night trying to find out what's going on with SCADA and realizing it was just a defective connector between two Ethernet cables. That's a great one. PG&E work at B tank and copper, replacing secondary conduit. Our crews have to, basically work with PG&E to ensure that our facilities remain safe and aren't inadvertently damaged in their process. Here's a PLC CPU repair at La Catena Waste Plant. So example, our electricians are out at all hours of the night making repairs. And then finally, we did publicly accept bids for the critical facility generator replacement project here in this boardroom, and we anticipate bringing that next board.
I have a question. Some of our constituents have pointed out that our leakage kind of exceeds state standards. And I'd like to, unless you have a quick answer, ask that you, I don't want an in-depth answer, but I'm curious about, are we working to meet that state standard? What's the big picture on leakage? We have so much water that relative to the cost, it wouldn't be something we would do, but is that something that you're working on?
Absolutely. So the short answer is we're absolutely working on it. We have a utility crew that all they do is replace service laterals. Remember too, that we have 6 different distribution systems. So the severity of the issue varies depending on the service area that you're in. I don't think it's any secret that we've talked about La Catena or Jenny Lind water system and the Copper Cove water system are the most leak prone, if you will. And so that's where the focus remains for the utility crew. Capital improvement projects also help to address this. We do have an understanding of how we have improved over time with both capital improvement projects, implementation, and then service lateral replacements. We are starting to see a change, a shift in basically the amount of leakage that we have.
It's decreasing.
It's decreasing. The one thing to think about also is we really kind of reset the bar when we implemented the AMI project. And we're now getting to a point where we have data that's valuable to help us, to help inform us about where we're going. And that was kind of step number 1. We need to be able to get that information and bring it into our system so we can push production up against that. And then we can get a real understanding of what's going on.
So there's a lot that goes into that. We've been having internal discussions about, when is the right time to bring a more detailed report to the board that gets into what the regulatory requirements are. It is one of the high priorities that drives, infrastructure decisions for us. But there's still a lot of imperfection in the data historically, and even, currently that we still need to resolve. And so we're trying to time that appropriately, but we'll bring a more detailed report back to the board on that.
The thing you got to recognize is the data that's out there today that a lot of people are making judgments on was basically being monitored by 40 and 50-year-old meters that we didn't believe were working. So that's why we replaced them with the AMI. So we're hoping to get more accurate data so we can actually find out what that loss is. And now we'll be able to isolate it so much better. So, there's a lot that goes into it. The AMI project should give us so much more information to help solve it.
That's good. When we were in San Diego, you and I met. I left you with the woman that has the company that does the projections on leakage and that kind of. Is that something? Was that all interested? That really applies more to urban areas than us, or?
Oh, no, that's absolutely applicable to us. There are few companies that provide that level of information. And so one of the things that's important that before we move towards some sort of smart
Yeah.
kind of software. We need to kind of improve our information gathering out in the field. So
Yeah.
not only is that with the meters, but part of the AMI project, provided $1 million grant funding that allowed us to buy pressure monitoring equipment for our PRVs. So when we deploy that equipment, we can now gather that information. And kind of like Michael said, this is kind of there's a lot of facets to this, but another component is additional system meters. And so we've talked about when we can kind of refine and drill down into different parts of the service area with additional meters and PRV equipment coupled with the AMI equipment, we could take advantage of a software like that sits on top of all of these things and then says, hey, this is a problem area. You're improving here, alert here. We're traveling down that portion. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Awesome report, Damon. Any comments, public comment? Anything online? All right, well, thank you.
Damon, I wanted to ask you about that last thing that you mentioned about the new equipment that you could set on top of a PRV. Last time I heard that, there were 4 of them that we obtained. Are they intended to be placed temporarily so that you can put some data and then take them to another spot, or do they stay where they're put?
The current objective is to leave them where they're at. Yep. And I want to say it's closer to 25 or 30 cents.
Oh,
Yeah. So I think 5 of those are going down into the Jenny Lind area and the rest will be up on the pass. Is that correct? 10 in Jenny Lind, the rest on the pass.
okay.
We could move them though. I think they're flexible enough that if we talk, hey guys, we need to move this, we're going to, we would just have to change probably the location parameters, the coordinates, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I took note about your slides that you only had one that showed a problem in the Copper Cove area. So
All right.
Things must be really good shape.
Yeah. Okay. I'll bring some more in for sure next time.
Thank you, Damon.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, moving on in our agenda, 5B, General Manager's Report. Michael.
All right. Couple of interesting announcements. UWPA has a new general manager. Eric Holt started yesterday, went from the director of Calaveras County Office of Emergency Services and is now the GM at Utica. We've known him for a long time in that role, a couple of years. He was in that role for 2-3 years. And so, we've had a good working relationship with him. I've had one meeting with him already over there at Utica, and he's I guess you don't drink from the fire hose at Utica, you drink from the flume. Still a lot of water. So he's, but we're looking forward to collaborating with him. And along those lines, that Highway 4 partnership group met. It's been a year and a half or so, maybe even a little bit more. I don't recall exactly when the board adopted a resolution, and so did the Utica board, and to collaborate on various things, but in particular regional water supply study that has kind of been through some fits and starts, but that group came back together. Dave Andrus was actually really helpful in moving the ball on that to a point where I feel like we have a pretty good agreement on a scope of work for that plan. And so we're hoping to bring that back to each of the boards involved. So the Angels Camp, UPUD, Utica board, and CCWD board, and incorporate that into everybody's budget for next year and get that study rolling next year, which I think would be a really great, great to build that partnership, and the information that comes from it be really helpful for all of us, water purveyors on the Highway 4 corridor. The engineering committee meeting yesterday, I think Kevin mentioned that briefly. Just want to shout out the engineering team a little bit, because I think we've maybe just kind of gotten used to how much happens in engineering now. And I was just reflecting earlier on how much that has increased over the last few years. Kevin's had a huge hand in that. Our engineering team is just delivering a lot of infrastructure projects at an increasing rate. It was one of the things the board charged me with when I first started was, we need to get moving on these CIP projects. And I think thanks to Kevin and his team, we're seeing a huge amount of progress on that front. And all you have to do is go to an engineering committee meeting, and it's a little dizzying how much is happening and how much work is happening. But it's all really, really good stuff. So there was a lot to cover yesterday, including the Sawmill and Wallace tank project that we awarded today. There'll be probably at least 2 or 3 other items that'll go to the board on the 28th, and more projects coming up and some wrap up work, concluding some projects, which is always nice, and starting new projects. So moving the process forward. So looking forward to that. Speaking of the meeting on the 28th, there'll be a closed session late afternoon on the 28th. The open session will start at 5:30. This is the same thing we did last year, where we did an evening meeting, the second meeting in January, that was really geared towards just a year in review. And I encourage people to check that out. Kelly did a really great presentation at last year's meeting. This year, we're going to do some of that. It'll be a little bit more of a pared down version of that. I think Kelly delivered a really great presentation last month on a lot of the work that we've done recently. So we will still have an item highlighting year in review and a little bit of a look ahead, but we also still have a lot of board business to conduct on the 28th. So it'll be, for the most part, a regular board meeting, but there will be some of that year in review. And I think that's probably something we'll continue to do on the second meeting in January, and have that opportunity. So looking forward to that meeting. Let's see, Aqua has announced its new officers, and want to acknowledge Damon, who continues to be now the chair of the Energy Committee, which is a really impressive achievement for Damon, and great for CCWD to have. It gives us another seat on the Aqua board. So Damon becomes a board member of the Association of California Water Agencies, statewide organization, and gives us Region 3 another seat on the Aqua board, which is fantastic. And it gives Damon an opportunity to really help shape the statewide narrative in the water industry on energy issues, which are huge for us. So it's just a huge achievement for Damon, and it really provides a lot of benefit to CCWD directly, but mountain counties in general. So wanted to shout that out. And also our good friend, former CCWD employee and current partner, Jessica Self, is the new vice chair for Region 3 board. So she'll also be on the Aqua board, and so want to congratulate Jessica for that. And then we have other staff members and board members participating in various committees. Outsized statewide presence for CCWD, I would say, relative to our size. And I think it just provides a lot of benefit for us to be involved in all of those discussions. Staffing update really briefly, admin services, as I think I've reported in the past, up until yesterday, we were at 50%. We're now at 60% because our new customer service representative started, and we're very excited about that. So reinforcements are coming, and more reinforcements are on the way. We have some interviews we're conducting, and I think we'll have an exciting announcement to make on the Director of Admin Services position soon. So how's that for a teaser? Stay tuned. Let's see, what else did I have? Meets next Friday, I think on the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. And we have Finance Committee next week. Oh, more on just a little bit more on admin services. Speaking of Finance Committee, we have, because of that staffing shortage, we brought Ide Bailey back on as a consultant we've worked with in the past on budget development and other, you know, kind of finance director role. And they're fantastic. They've kind of reintegrated very smoothly. Kylie has done a phenomenal job running the shop in the accounting department, and she's interfacing with Ide Bailey as well. And so they will be here at our finance committee next week, virtually, I believe, but they'll be present. And so we're confident with the team that we have in place there. And this is, you know, for the most part, a temporary arrangement until we get staffed back up, but really critical time, as it always is, I guess, for admin services, but concluding the audit from last fiscal year, starting budget development for next fiscal year. These are things we can't fall behind on. And so we have, I think, a great team in place to keep those processes moving until we're staffed up again. Let's see. I think that is all I have for now. Oh, I just want to also thank Kelly. And you know, a lot of people have stepped up because of those staffing shortages. Stacy and Kelly on the management team in particular, a shout out, because they've taken on additional roles and they're just embraced it, and they're doing a phenomenal job. But Becca, Tiffany, and Haley, I shouldn't even be listing names, because everybody, I think, has had to take on a little bit more. And it's just, I don't know, I think this is one of those times when you become even more proud of the team that we have than we already were, because it's seeing everybody come together and make sure everything's rolling and that we don't lose track of anything. It's just really impressive. And then Kelly still he already had a full-time job. So he's out there on Saturday last week at the Firewise meeting in Poker Flat, representing CCWD, giving a presentation to the community there, and doing a lot of really valuable outreach. So a lot of people stepping up in addition to the busy full plates that they already had. And so just really want to make sure we continue to acknowledge that.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you to staff for that's the same reason. I think the entire board appreciates their ongoing effort. We're moving on to board reports, information, future agenda items. I'll start with board reports. Russ.
I don't have anything to report today.
I don't know if I've been here since we met since Aqua. Have we been here?
We did.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, no, I haven't.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on, first of all, Damon, thanks. That was a real good broad overview. I'm delighted to hear we're making progress on our leakage. But just to be clear, Michael, so I understood you're planning on submitting some kind of report on leakage that would include progress, obstacles, future plans to address that.
Yeah, it's bigger than just leakage. And it's a multi-departmental effort. But yeah, we'll bring that back. We don't have a target board meeting yet when we'll bring a presentation back. So I want to make sure we have time to really provide a really good presentation. But yeah, we'll bring that back in the near future.
Near future means by March or something like that, or in March?
Yeah, we have some work to do on the data
Okay.
that still needs some cleanup. So I would hope by March,
Okay.
but considering the staffing situation right now, I'm going to be cautious about making promises.
Well, if nothing else, even just a report on what we lack and when we think we can get to it.
Sure.
Because I understand that we have to understand the data that we're getting from all these meters and figure out how to match that with everything else. So at least just give us a list of the things out there waiting for when they should be ready.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Russ, because I have a few things.
Well, I do want to kind of circle back to Roxanne's comments in her email, and then again today. We have a statement at the beginning of our meetings that the people who want to talk about issues or see them on the agenda, that they should just, simply request it and they get on the agenda at some point. Will there be any discussion on the 28th about the, whether it's feasible to make a decision to pause the increase that we've got scheduled for July 16th of 2026?
No, not on the 28th. We don't have that information yet. So that will come, as it always does, as part of the regular budget development process. And so like we did last year, I think we're shooting hopefully for April prior to presentation of the actual preliminary budget, a more targeted discussion on that front. But we're, like I said, we haven't wrapped up the audit from last fiscal year yet. We still have a lot of work to do on budget development before we could even provide the board with the information that would be needed to make that decision.
Okay, so you essentially would be repeating that response on the 28th that
we're not planning on agendizing an item on that topic on the 28th.
But we would formally discuss that in May as the preliminary budget is kind of presented.
Yeah, April, May, at the latest May, when we'll bring the preliminary budget to the finance committee, and then to the full board later in May. But if we have the information we need, we would try to bring it to the finance committee even in April to have that discussion, because it's helpful for us to have direction from the board on that front as we're finalizing the budget, so we know what the revenue projections should be.
And what choices we have to make. Gotcha. All right.
Okay, I have a few things to announce just about my activities. JPIA got a meeting later on this week on Friday. And then next week I got a meeting on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, different committees and a regular board meeting then with the JPIA. In February, with the JPIA, I'll travel to San Diego to do some strategic planning session. And then later on that same month to Nashville for the National Pooling Conference. One thing that, Michael, I thought you might mention was the CSDA has established a local Calaveras chapter, and our partner, Jessica, with UPUD, Jessica Self is president of that chapter. They're meeting here in this room, January 21st. Kind of an exciting thing for it's a brand new chapter. I think this is only their second meeting. They get the first meeting, they chose officers. Kelly will be our representative here. I'm sure he'll be at that meeting, 1:30 here, CSDA meeting on January 21st.
Can you say a little for the purposes of people in the room, what the purpose of
The California Special District Association
right.
is a group similar to Aqua. They do heavy in advocacy throughout the state, involves special districts, not only water districts, but fire districts, cemetery districts, mosquito control districts, and a wide variety. They overlap with our advocacy on some things. A lot of things we partner with them. Mountain counties partners with them as well. And it's good to have a local chapter, and encourage our involvement at staff level as well as board level in the discussions and committees that they're forming and things that they're studying. Dane Waddle is our longtime Calaveras resident. Actually, he was the guy last year at our evening meeting when Bertha was retiring. He grew up as her neighbor up in Dorrington, Camp Connell area. And he's I don't know if he'll be here at that meeting, but yeah, Kelly shaking his head, yes, he will be here at that meeting. Also at the Aqua Conference in San Diego, the winners of or the awardees of the President's Special Recognition Awards were announced, and I'm so proud. Calaveras County Water District has received a certificate, which means a certificate in the President's Special Award. It recognizes JPIA members in the liability, property, and workers' comp coverages for low loss ratios. Meaning they're not having losses. They're paying. If your loss ratio is less than 20%, you're doing real good. And we haven't always been that way, but CCWD won awards in all three categories. And and I'm here to present the awards that we received. These same CPUD, UPUD, Utica, all received awards. Out of those, we're the only ones that received all three awards this year. So congratulations and to staff, all of staff. This is huge. Workers' comp, causing problems on the road, causing property damage to other people's property as involves liability, our own property, taking care of it. It doesn't fail to the point where it's causing damage to our property and our safety programs. Awesome. This is really good to see. JPIA is gaining strides to get its funds, its reserves packed back up. And once they do, we'll start receiving those big checks we used to receive 5-10 years ago. I think,
Well done.
right. Yeah, they were big money and
Like $100,000.
yeah, large checks. I think that's all that I have. We do talk about future agenda items. So there's two things I think are coming back to us. Next board meeting, Wednesday, January 28th. Michael just spoke about it, 5:30 in the evening by demand of our constituents. We're doing that again, trying at an evening meeting.
By request.
By request. Yes. We do listen. Wednesday, February 11th is our next board meeting, regular board meeting after that. Right now, we're going into closed session with two items, conference with legal counsel and negotiations, confidential unit and management program, negotiations. Any public comment on closed session? Online? Okay, seeing none. And then the closed session will be back to report any action. Thank you.